Hey everyone, it's been a few months since my last deck profile video. I've been pretty busy with work and a lot of my own personal uh, other activities outside of this game. But I recently finally completed my ABCs, and if you know me as a player, it's ABCs is actually one of my favorite decks of all time. So without further ado, let us begin with the deck profile. I'm so glad that this deck got new support, and ever since I saw the new support, I knew that this deck it could actually go back to being like somewhat competitive. So anyways, for the standard ABC pieces, I have cut it down to 1A, 2 Buster Drake, and 1 Crush Wyvern. I still remember when A Assault Core first got limited, I believe was it back in late 2018, I believe. We all thought that was a huge blow and it was unfair for all ABC players. But nowadays, even with Assault Core at 3, I see people running 2. But in my personal opinion, I feel like 1 Assault Core is all you really need. You don't need like any more than that. And also, we need more room to run the new support. So yes, this is the ratio I use. Now for the new cards, I have a 3 Cross Cannon. This card is basically a new combo starter that can also double as an extender. And the cool thing about these new support cards is that unlike the old support which we had for things like unauthorized reactivation or even Union Hanger, which restricts you from summoning the monster that's equipped to it that turn, this is not the case, and I repeat, this is not the case for X Cross Cannon. Because X Cross Cannon, it says that it doesn't have the restriction that you cannot special summon the monster you equip to it that same turn. That means you can essentially just normal summon Cross Cannon, activate its effect, equip Buster Drake from the deck, and then just summon Buster Drake and immediately go into a Link 2. And if you remember like all the previous ABC deck profiles I did, where I was explaining the combo videos, you know that in this case, Buster Drake can immediately get you a free search. Now, what are you going to search for, you might add? Well, you will usually search for the 1 YuGiOh, or if you have this card is banished, you will search for the Zillion Tank. So these two cards, they complement each other in the sense that YuGiOh is basically the retrain of Y Dragon Head. And what this one does is that when it's special summoned, and no, it has to be special summoned, you can equip 1 Union Light Machine Union monster to it from your hand or your graveyard, essentially, to it as an equip. And just like X Cross Cannon, you can also summon that same monster that same turn. Now for Z Zillion Tank, it does the same thing as YuGiOh, except it equips back from the banished. So these two definitely complement each other really well. Next up, you can actually use Z Zillion Tank to re-equip a used up Union driver and banish the driver to equip something else out of the deck. So that's also another little fun thing you can do. But yes, Union Driver, unfortunately, it's one of the 2 bricks that this deck has to run in order for it to work. But this originally, this does help bypass the restrictions for Union Hanger and unauthorized reactivation. And the good news is that with the new support, this card is no longer as bricky as it used to be. Because at worst case, even if you end up drawing this card, you can equip it from the hand using a YuGiOh's effect. And last Union monster we run is the 1 Torque Tune Gear. This card is... It's not actually... some people might consider this a brick card, but I actually say that it's not as much of a brick as it seems. Because first of all, it's a Union... It's a Light Machine Union, so it can be searched off of both Union Hanger, and it can be equipped off of a Union Hanger as well. In addition, it can also be searched via Buster Drake, summoned from the hand by Crush Wyvern, or recycled back from graveyard to hand by Assault Core. And you can, and if you really wanted to, you can even use X Cross Cannon to equip this out of the deck and then summon it. And this is an automatic level 5 synchro summon as well. And mostly we use Torque Tune Gear to facilitate combos involving Ancient Fairy Dragon, which I'll demonstrate later. And the second brick and final brick we have to run is unfortunately 1 X-Hat Cannon. And this card is mostly to make it possible for us to search the X Cross Cannon off of cards like Union Activation. if now, I guess this is one of those few times where I really wish that something like, if only A Assault Core had 100 less attack, or if something like B Buster Drake had his attack and defense stats reversed, we wouldn't even need to run X-Head Cannon at all. But as it stands right now, X-Head Cannon is the second brick we need to run in this deck, aside from Union Driver. Now, onto the spells. Still one of the best field spells in the game, Union Hanger. It's basically most good cards these days. It might be a 1 card plus 1. Union Hanger is literally at least a 1 card plus 2. So yes, always max out on this. In fact, if we were allowed to run like 10 copies of Union Carrier per deck, a Union Hanger per deck, I would actually run 10 copies. But obviously, you can only run 3 copies of the same card per deck. Next up, the new card, Union Activation. This is basically the new reinforcement of the army for the deck. And it basically acts as a Rhoda and a Foolish Burial. Now, a little interesting fact you should remember, most people will look at it and say, oh, I'll just use Union Activation to send X Cross Cannon to the graveyard and add X Head Cannon to the graveyard and add X Cross Cannon to your hand. And that is a legal play. But one thing that you can also do is that you can basically use it to search for any one of these 3 cards as well. Because they all have 1500 attack, if you already have an X Cross Cannon in hand, and you have Union Activation, instead of using Union Activation to search for a second Cross Cannon, you can mill Buster Drake to the graveyard, get Y Yarhead to your hand, or like if you have this like in your hand already, you can use mill Zillion Tank to the graveyard to get Buster Drake to your hand. So basically, that's also a little side utility that Union Activation has. Its second effect is not really that useful, so I'm not going to go too detailed into it. But it basically says that if you're able to summon 3 monsters at the same time, so in this case, the equivalent of Dragon Buster tagging out, you can basically search your deck for a monster that has 3000 or more attack, and then after you adding it to your hand, you can immediately normal summon. So this means that technically, the good news is that this means that cards like Nibiru are now searchable off of Union Activation. The bad news is that even if you search Nibiru, you're forced to automatically normal summon it on the spot, and you won't have the chance to save it in your hand until next turn, because a normal summon is, unfortunately, it's mandatory. Anyways, moving on. Now, a lot of people max it out at 3, and I can understand why. However, I prefer to run 2 copies of Unauthorized Reactivation. And while I agree that this is a very good card, I don't think it's worth it to run it at 3 because it's not a combo starter by itself. And what do I mean by this? So, Unauthorized Reactivation is basically the equivalent of a quick play spell card that mimics the second effect of Union Hanger, and that it allows you to equip excuse me, it allows you to equip an appropriate Union monster from your deck to the target. However, in addition to that, it also makes it so that you cannot summon that equipped monster that same turn. So this is useful because since it's a quick play spell, it can not only double as a combo extender, but it can also be used as almost like a pseudo Forbidden Lance, since your ABC pieces inherently offer protection against either monsters cards, spell cards, or trap card effects. However, it is a hard once per turn, and if you do run 3 copies and you see multiple copies of it in your opening hand, it's really not as it's not that useful. But this card, it does help you play around things like Nibiru the Primal Being. For instance, if you're comboing off and right at your 5th summon, your opponent drops Nibiru, you can save one of the most important monster by activating Reactivation and equipping a Assault Core to that target, assuming you haven't already searched the Assault Core. So yeah, that's it with regards to the ABC and the Union cards. Now let's move on to some extenders and supports. So I'm still running the Therion engine with 2 Regulus and 1 Disc Coliseum. Disc Coliseum is basically similar to Union Hanger in that when you activate it, you can add Regulus to your hand. And Regulus is also an Omni Negate once it hits the field. And it also acts as a extender since it allows you to essentially equip one of your ABC pieces from your graveyard. And then since your ABC pieces are Union monsters, they can automatically unequip and summon themselves. So yeah, really good. Next up for the hand traps, I run 3 Motarmi Purulia, 3 Fuolos, 3 Ash Blossom, and 3 Infinite Impermanence. Now, everyone should know what these cards do, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on this. And the last 5 cards, 1 Pot of Prosperity, just to improve consistency. And in a way, this card can also act as like your 12th 1-card starter. Terraforming to search for the field spell. Set Rotation also to search for the field spell. And then the last 2 cards, 1 Call by the Grave, and also 1 Angel Statue Azurune. And Azurune, it's almost kind of acting like a second layer of disruption. And what do I mean by this? It's essentially summons itself as a trap card monster, and it also can tribute itself while it's a monster to essentially negate the summon of one of your opponent's special summons. So even in the event where you go full combo off and your opponent on their turn they say, okay, I'm gonna Dark Ruler no more you, and then they try to combo off, you can flip the Azurune, summon it, and then like your opponent tries to link summon a monster, you tribute the Azurune and negate their link summon. So that's it for the main deck. Let's get on to the extra deck. So I'm still running the 3 copies of ABC Dragon Buster. I see a lot of people cutting this down to 2, and I can see why, but I really like the grinding ability of having more Dragon Busters in the deck. One of the new card, XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon. This card, it's similar to ABC Dragon Buster in that they both have a quick effect, like removal effect, and they also have a pseudo tagging out effect. And while this card isn't as strong as Dragon Buster, it's still pretty good and high up there. So run 1 copy of this. And the difference and the thing with this card is that the summoning conditions for XYZ Hyper Dragon Cannon is basically the same as that of a Dragon Buster, except instead of Assault Core, Buster Drake, and Crush Wyvern, you banish these 3 instead. Now, one other card, Fusion Monster, Union Controller. This card is basically super easy to summon because you can use either one of Zed Zillion Tank or Y Yarhead as the first material. And the second material, from what it says any light machine monster. And the good thing about this is that when it first hits the field, you can add any one of these 3 cards to your deck. In this deck, at least, usually you'll be searching one of these 3 cards. And I guess what makes this card good is also its second effect, is that once per turn you can special summon 1 Union monster from your hand. So in this case, since I discussed before that the Y Yarhead and Zed Zillion Tank, they both have effects that trigger on special summon. If you have either of these in your hand, you can special summon it and activate the effect to get a second equip off. And it just helps you go plus even more. That's it for the fusion monsters. Next, 1 Ancient Fairy Dragon, obviously because it helps you search for the field spell. And like Union Controller, also gets you an extra special summon from the hand. Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, Sky Thunder. Detonator, this is mostly as a target for Metatronus and Ultimate Slayer. And finally, Baguska. So there have been times when, let's say, my opponent drops something like a Motarmi Fuolos against me or Motarmi Purulia against me. And basically, if I try to combo off, I'm just going to give my opponents more cards. Or if they drop D-Shifter, if I combo off, all my stuff's going to get banished. So instead of trying to combo off in in vain, I'm going to just summon out Baguska, put into defense mode, and then just hope that that's enough to stall them for a turn. And most of the time it would be, because Baguska's almost like a pseudo floodgate. As long as it remains in defense mode, all monsters on both sides of the field are also forced to switch to defense mode. And on top of that, and the effect of any monster whose effect is activated while it's in defense mode is automatically negated. And a little fun fact, I remember one time I went to locals, and I remember hearing someone say that Baguska looks like an elephant. And I was shocked because the card name for Baguska literally says Baguzka, the terribly tired tapir. So it seems that according to that guy, the card name should literally be changed to number 41, Baguzka, the terribly tired elephant instead. Huh, just a little fun fact. And for the rest of the Link monsters, I run one Underworld Goddess, Nightmare Griffin, the other Floodgate, Silhouette Rabbit. The reason why I run Rabbit is because as soon as it's Link summoned, I can search for Angel Statue Azure Rune right from the deck. And also, if I linked one of my Assault Core or Buster Drake or Crush Wyvern, I can use that effect to chain block this effect, so to prevent this from being negated. And then obviously you have the Platinum Gadget, and because obviously this is an ABC, it's a machine deck, and I need more special summons from the hand. And last two the cards here, they're just here for light target purposes. Although the Moon of the Closed Heaven, it can also be used to go into Underworld Goddess as well. So that's it for the extra deck. For the side deck, it's still kind of a work in progress right now, but I have 2 Artifact Lancia to deal with the Malice matchup. Feather Duster, board wipe, one Metatronus. I'm trying to pick up a second one, but for now I only have one. And also 3 Ultimate Slayers. So these act as like the pseudo board breakers going second. And these I would say are really good against decks like YuGiOh, for instance. If I use Metatronus to summon my detonator, and then it will automatically negate my opponent's detonator as well, and it will automatically banish both of them face down. And the best part is that, like Ultimate Slayer, Metatronus prevents the targeted monster from using its effects. So they cannot say, oh, I'll just chain Detonator's effect to your Metatronus. They can't do that. Next, 3 copies of Triple Tactics Thrust. And for those and for the thrust targets that I search for, I can search for 3 copies of Evenly Matched, and also 1 Dimensional Barrier, and 1 Artifact Sanctum. The Sanctum is mostly here when for going first. If let's say I know I'm playing against a Malice player, I can just set the Sanctum, and then on their turn flip this to summon the Lancia, and then I'll tribute the Lancia, and then basically prevent them from banishing. And this will basically slow down the Malice player for a whole turn. Dimensional Barrier, this will be really good against YuGiOhs, where you can just call Xyz, and then it'll lock them out of the Xyz summoning altogether. So anyways, this is it for my updated ABC deck. Thanks for watching, guys, and please stay tuned because my next video will be a combo tutorial video on how to play ABCs to its max potential. And in that video, I will not only demonstrate the 1-card combos, but I'll also demonstrate potential 2-card combos as well. And I'll even demonstrate a situation where you're playing through not 1, not 2, but 3 different hand traps and still try to set up a field where you end up on at least 3 to 4 disruptions. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.